Good morning. This is Playing to Win with Mark Henderson Leary and my good friend Brad Freyer. And did I scare you, man? Did I startle?
I didn't know if I scared you or you scared me. You seemed alarmed for whatever reason at the beginning of that.
Well, I just know I got to bring the energy because I'm known for
yeah.
bringing the energy. I'm known for intimidating guests on the podcast when I kind of give them this sort of like gentle discussion of what's going on and reminder and checklist. Oh, we're going to start. And then I come full blast and people are like, whoa, what just happened? So I decided to do the same to you.
Well, mission accomplished.
Good. Well, I noticed there's an important question on my mind, and that is that the picture that I just saw a minute ago was pre-pandemic Mark. Do they look the same to you? Does it feel like two different people?
I think you have aged like a fine wine, and you continue to amaze me with your astonishing good looks and handsome demure.
Well, thank you for that. I guess I'll just count. No one cares is what I took away from that.
Trying to remember what the hell the picture was. I was like, "There's pictures."
Yeah, right. But I do think about like my COVID hair and I think how different is it that when they see the old pictures, are they thinking that am I fraudulent? I guess that's my fear. Is that when people see me in person, they go like, "Oh, are those your high school photos?" And I was like, "No, that was actually just from 12 months ago, 18 months ago." But
yeah, no, I wouldn't. But I asked the same. My headshot is ages old, and so I do wonder if people see the headshot and then see me in person. Wait a second.
Yeah.
Is that your son?
Well, good morning, sir. How are you feeling?
I'm doing well, man. Good weekend. Very busy, but a lot of time outdoors, which is where I'm the happiest. It's my happy place. So yeah, I got a full week ahead. Rock'em sock'em nonstop. And then next week I'm on vacation. So I'm gonna burn it down this week and use up all the fuel and recharge next week.
Does that mean we're not streaming on Monday?
It's a fair statement.
We could. That's how we learn these things. I feel like I just got fired via Twitter.
I think the place is going to have good Wi-Fi. if you don't mind the lake backdrop.
Okay. Well, we could do that.
Might not be a bad.
Yeah.
Might not be bad.
No, I streamed from Birmingham a couple months ago. It was no sweat, but I don't want to force you. I mean, it's vacation, right? So I'm a big believer in the clarity breaks
But I enjoy this. This is just a conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes it's just chasing my tail, I think, but hopefully for the entertainment of other people.
Indeed.
Well, before we started before I went crazy and just plugged myself into the 240 volt outlet, you had a
1.21 kilowatt.
You had an interesting observation. What's going on in the job marketplace is how did you describe it?
There is a great career migration.
Career migration, and so like birds flying south for the winter.
Yes, something like that. Except for instead of birds, it's people,
oh.
and instead of south, it's other jobs.
Ah.
So yeah. So apparently, during the pandemic and during the during election years, and then to throw on top of that the pandemic, people were very hesitant to consider looking for new jobs or making changes because of the uncertainty, right? The devil that So if they had a job, if they felt at all secure, anybody that was considering looking kind of put it on hold because they didn't know what companies were going to be thriving or dying during COVID or post-COVID. And so everybody just kind of hunkered down unless you got laid off, right? I mean, obviously, if you got forced out, then you were in the market. But now people are looking for jobs. And a couple of things are happening, right? Number one is people are reassessing their lifestyle, their overall happiness, the company culture, quality of life. I mean, they're looking at all of that and then trying to say, is this where I want to be, or do I want to be somewhere else? And then the second thing, and these are conversations I just heard last week. I've got people that are seeing friends getting new jobs, and the excitement that those people are having going into a new job is kind of becoming infectious.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody wasn't really looking, but they're seeing how excited their friends are with these new jobs, and they're like, well, I've been at my job for 5 or 6 years, and I'm not excited anymore. Maybe I should get excited again. And so there's a lot of that happening right now. And so as a business owner or as a leader or as a manager, you got two things that you really should be thinking about. Number one is, if you have a team of people that you value, that you like, that you think are going to be your ride or die, right? The people that you want to stay with for the long haul, you better start having meaningful conversations with them to make sure that they're happy, to make sure they have the satisfaction with their role, with their lifestyle, blah, 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 blah. Or if you want to top grade your team and you think 2021, 2022 is going to be a top grade season, now's the time to begin building the plan to make that happen.
Yeah, man. I hear a lot of different things on those same topics, and from a couple different lenses. And I think there's probably 3 or 4 buckets. And one is there are people who have labor shortage problems still, right? Those are people like
right.
in the services industry right now. They're struggling to get good talent in the door to serve tables.
Correct.
And so that's a challenge. Then there's people who are have enjoyed a great culture, and they did a lot of great stuff, especially through the pandemic, and they have an exceedingly loyal culture now. Yep. And there are people who have been in a tight situation where they've had people, but not the people they want, and they feel a lot of frustration about trying to improve their culture, and they're all trying to figure out that how to do that. And what's funny is that, I say funny, what's I guess convenient is that it's all boils down to one thing, and when people are asking what to do with that, and it really talks about the core values. Like if it's cultural, it's not job oriented, it's not generically good people, bad people, it is who are our people, so we can establish loyalty about that. And so a couple of things I want to turn it back to your thoughts on that, but I do have 2 beliefs that it is about understanding your culture and the core values and doing that work, and that's your key to solving that problem and retaining.
Right.
I also do think that there is a check to be paid at the end of the pandemic. Your behavior, your activity. Like I definitely preach this. A lot of people preach this. Like, this is your time to show your best self.
Right.
There's a sense of scarcity, and you are going to behave in ways that people will remember through the pandemic. Well, guess what? Today is the day. The check is due, and if you did great work and your reputation is solid, you will likely benefit from that. If you have a scarcity mentality and you are trying to dig your way out of that, you're going to have double work to do now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what are your values? What's your vision? Do you have a game plan for developing and keeping talent? Do you have a game plan for top grading and bringing people on? I mean, the other thing that people don't often consider is that if you are looking to hire right now, there's so much change happening that you're competing for top quality candidates. And so you can't be lazy with your hiring process. You can't be lazy with your interview process. You can't be lazy with your recruiting and your onboarding, because they're measuring you against all the other companies that they're interviewing with. I just had a thought and I lost it.
We can wait. We have 22 minutes.
Right.
No, take your time, man. Take your time.
Yeah. Thank you. just let me sweat over here thinking, trying to come up with it.
Oh, this is funny. Well, so I'll talk about all that thoughts. I'll try to stir the pot. So lazy, I get that, and I that won't work. You have to take it seriously. Yeah. I also think, and my experience is that it is not, as I've said before, generic. If you're going to go to market and sell, if you're going to create a business that stands for something, you've got to do the work and find out, what is that? What do you stand for? And right. I really do believe that the scarcity mentality, we can't find good people. I've had so many people claim that frustration. And what do you stand for? Why would they work for you and not somebody else? Like, if you take money out of the equation, what do you have to offer? And the laziness isn't just, that work you have to do isn't just in working hard and doing more interviews and screening harder and using the top grading process. It's going inward. It's asking yourself, truly, why would somebody want to work here? And if you can't answer 100%. That question, you got a problem. Yeah,
100%. I mean, obviously compensation has something to do with it, but the company culture, the company vision, leadership, we've always heard people don't leave companies, they leave leaders. The same thing goes with hiring. People want to work for winning teams. People want to work for leaders that inspire and motivate and make you excited to be part of the team. And so if you're running a team right now that you don't feel like is a winning team, why would anybody want to work there?
Yeah.
And so building, creating that groundwork, putting in the time now to create the processes, defining the ideal candidates, getting a good job description, getting a good ad created, doing all those things that shine the best light on you and your organization. Because when you have choices, if I'm interviewing for jobs and I have choices of where I want to go, all those little things matter, right?
Well, reputation's a big part of that too. And so
sure.
I guess one of the things I'd like people to urge people now is if you start doing the work today, the time lag of real benefit of reputation is real. And so a couple of things you should take into account that you need that reputation. If you're consistently complaining that there's no line at your door, that you have 2 open positions and 1 candidate, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And so you are going to have to figure out what you stand for. You're going to have to define your culture. You're going to have to define where you're going and be able to communicate it to people. And it's going to take some time for the roots to grow and for your current employees to get excited enough to tell their friends, and the people who leave who leave on good terms, but to also tell their friends. That takes a while. But also understand that the law of small numbers applies to most of these companies between 10 million and 100 million that I'm working with. If they've got 5 open, well, depending on if it's 1 open position and you've got no candidates, that's a problem. If it's 1 open position and you got 3 candidates, like, wow, it's a bounty. It's a bountiful harvest, So you don't have to move the needle that much to kind of go to like, wow, we got options. We're good to go. So couple that patience with, you don't have to change the whole universe's understanding of you to suddenly feel like you got some real good candidates who are going to be long haul players. Like if you get those people who are loyal, you don't have to replace them, and it's really worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And trying to find that loyalty is the other challenge in today's environment, right? Employees don't have the sense of loyalty that was had 20 years ago or a generation ago.
But I'll argue it's a different type of loyalty. I think in the old days, the loyalty was to resource. It was like, this is a job with a company who has been around, and there's prestige, and I can provide for my family in a predictable way, and I am grateful to have a job. Now the transactability, the temporariness, like if I stop liking you, I'm not shackled to you. Like I don't expect to have a pension. I don't expect to retire from a company. And so the standard of excellence of loyalty goes way up. And if you're an old style company with old style leadership of like, you should be grateful to work in this country. And, and I think there's truth to that. But if that's all you show up with, the younger generation's like, there's somebody across the street who really is fun, and I like fun. and
fulfilling, right? I mean, fulfilling, that's a big, people want to have a sense of fulfillment, which is relatively new.
Well, exactly. See, to me, you nailed it. That was the exact word. So fulfillment is, I think, a great counterpart to fun, because fun seems so like sweet and instant gratification. Like, hey, there's a foosball table. Like maybe, but more likely it's a fulfillment thing. It's a matter of what makes me feel like the time I'm spending and sacrificing is worthwhile. And that's a highly personal set of decisions to define. Yeah. And an individual is going to spend their lifetime trying to answer that question. And if you're a business owner and you haven't spent 30 minutes answering that question, you don't have answers for them, and they will leave.
Yeah, try to figure out a way to have an administrator or a controller or an engineer find fulfillment in that job role. I mean, you have to figure out how the company culture is going to provide an opportunity for fulfillment.
Well, to your point about the migration, you actually need that. What you need is to be able to go introspective, and this leadership team and this company, this is what we stand for. This is what gets us out of bed. This is what our culture is about. And we're going to bring some people into the organization, and some of them are going to love it, and some of them are going to like it and leave. And that's okay because they got to pursue their journey and they got to open up that spot so you can get somebody in behind them who does love it. And it's a journey on both sides. And if you don't have people changes as a normal and good part of your process as a leadership team and as your culture, you're not going to level the culture up. In fact, that's a good call out because I think I've worked with, and back in the old days, we did some acquisitions in my IT business days. And one of the things we learned very quickly is that we looked at a company who was, we were going to acquire, and they were so proud of the longevity of their employees. Everybody here has been at least here 10 years. What we knew was that there was no standard of excellence in that company, and nobody was uncomfortable enough to leave. So it was not a good thing. There needs to be some real intentional churn and improvement around people evolving and the company evolving and the needs changing and all that.
Yeah, I mean that's tough. I mean, I've built a team from scratch and I've acquired a team. And when you build a team from scratch and you have the ability to bring people on and kind of stack them, and you have that excitement and you have the culture that you want to have from day one, and you're adding people to the team that fit the culture and personality, and you have fun and you do things and you have whatever, versus, if you are a manager that's been brought into an existing, right, walking in and not being able to identify the culture, or, having 40 employees and going, okay, well, this isn't the culture I want. How do I get these 40 people who don't know me from Adam into a culture that I want to have? And who are the people that are going to be the human anchors that hold us back? And who are going to be the ones that are running ahead and trying to really encourage and promote it? Who are going to be my loyalists? Who are going to be the naysayers? I mean, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to build a culture from scratch when you're new into a position. But going back to where we started the conversation, right? We spend a lot of time talking about hiring and making sure that you have that message. But what if you have people that you want to keep, and now there's this great migration going on, and they're they've got for all practical purposes, they're doing a good job. They have a decent level of employee satisfaction, but they're seeing all this going on, and so they look over the fence, right? And that's the danger. As soon as they look over the fence, the grass always looks greener. And whether it's $5,000 more, whether it's a closer commute, whether it's flex hours, whether it's I've got a friend working there, you never know what's going to be that carrot that pulls people, encourages them just to finally make the jump over the fence.
Yeah, so you got a real danger there. I would call it kind of an overhang, in that if many people in their career, it is timing. The end of the road has found them. They have been in the same job for 6 or 7 years, and the next level for them is really not present in your organization, and it might be logical for them to leave. If they do, and there's no cultural loyalty, you might have a bunch of other people who have longevity left in your organization get this idea as well. Like you said, the infectiousness of it's new car fever. Everybody like, oh my gosh, look at the shiny new car. Let's get one too, and let's get a new job too. And that's a real thing. And so I do think those conversations are critical. I unfortunately find that the reality is that a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm thinking very much from the top leadership perspective, and you're kind of providing the voice of that middle management, I think. And so we got both of those here. I think a lot of people have to learn. They unfortunately learn it the hard way. They're like, well, on another day, someday I'll get there. Right now I'm printing money. Right now I'm growing sales. Right now I don't have any money and I don't have the time. Whatever that excuse is, they haven't done the work, and they realize too late the cost and expense. And actually that happened to me. I lost 2 critical employees at a time that I didn't react fast enough to, and I didn't understand what I needed in place, and I lost sort of the culture of the team, and it was very, very, very difficult for me. I learned it the hard way for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage leaders to have meaningful conversations, right? Sitting down with people and say, hey, look, I just read this article, and if you haven't read the article, it's on my LinkedIn page. I think it was a Forbes article. But it talks about the migration, and you can tee the conversation up with your employees with that, right? Hey, I read this article. There's this great migration going on. You are mission critical to our organization and to me. So can we have a conversation about where you are, what's your level of comfort, what's your level of employee satisfaction? What what would prompt you to look over the fence? And that's a difficult question for people to ask because they don't want to know the answer, or they're afraid, Brad, if I tell them, hey, what would prompt you to look over the fence? Maybe they haven't been thinking about it, but now they are.
Yeah.
And that's a cop-out excuse for not asking a good question, because they're eventually going to have that thought cross their mind, whether it's a LinkedIn ad for a job, or they're at happy hour with some friends and the friends say, I just got this new job. I'm so excited. We've got a foosball table and we do, we're, Homes for Humanity or whatever. So having that conversation, at least you're going to learn a little bit more than you currently know.
Yeah.
And ask that tough question.
I couldn't agree more. You actually opened up a whole can of worms there, and I'm going to try not to just sort of vomit at the mouth of the ideas that are coming out of this. And so I want to make this instructive for people. So when I lead a company through this process to try to get that culture figured out, that's part of what I do. Is say, who are your very best people? And there's a whole process I lead through to kind of unpack what's best about them. And very typically, there's 3 to 5 employees that everybody agrees are just amazing. And we use that process to create a language for what our culture is about, and it starts a bigger process, which is to turn it into words and core values that we can attract everybody through. But parallel to that is that handful of employees, and in the process, I say, like, do they know? Do they know that they're those people? And are you doing all you can to keep those people in the organization? And I do think exactly what you said is right on track. At the same time, I want to caution people that the idea of, hey, I love you. You're amazing. If you don't want to work here anymore, if you can't work here anymore, I would love to have an open and honest conversation the moment you feel that way, so we can work it out, figure it out, and get you where you need to go. That is imaginary. That is never happening. So I was so heartbroken the first time that happened to me. I thought I'd been open and honest. There's too much fear. There's too much at stake. Get that out of your head. It's not on the table.
It's a no-win situation for the employee to do that. That you can't. I mean, I agree. I mean, I've had situations tangentially where that's happened, and you ask yourself, well, why couldn't they just come and tell me? Well, because they can't. Because as soon as they tell you, you're going to act different. You're going to treat them different. They don't know how long this process is going to take. The only time they want to tell you is once they've locked down their next opportunity.
Right.
Because they know as soon as they say the words, hey, I'm kind of thinking about looking.
Yeah.
The entire game has changed. You're looking to replace them. And so if their process is slower than your process, you're going to let them go, right? You're going to treat them like crap. You're going to take responsibilities away from them. I mean, I totally agree. That would be an amazing environment to be able to do that, but it's just a fantasy.
Yeah. So I think what the best thing you can come up with is inviting these people to help create the company and the culture that they want and you want. Now there's a whole balancing act. When you start the process of these are the people I want, you are actually asking yourself and your leadership team and those peers, the 3 to 7 people who run the organization, to agree on that being the culture. And so you've got to understand sort of the boundary and the limit. You aren't going to go hand the keys to the kingdom to somebody who's going to either put you in hostage, or somebody whose values you think are good, but when you test them don't really pan out. So you really have to have some caution about how much authority and power you're going to give an individual, but certainly inviting them to create the future is a great way to make them feel seen, heard, empowered, and allow them to create their best future.
So the only caveat to that is make sure that it's abundantly clear that you do not lead by consensus, right? Meaning, look, we're going to sit in a room. I'm going to listen to your ideas. I want all of your feedback, all of your input. I want all of your vision,
Right.
But don't misunderstand that I'm going to plug that in.
I'm speaking very conceptually right now. So you're you hit the nail on the head that like a million ideas could go through an entrepreneur's mind when I say that, like, because I think visionary entrepreneurs tend to abdicate anyway. And they're like, hey, I want you to stay. So go figure out how to stay, and I'm going to go work on anything else. And hopefully you don't mess that part up and you come back and it's a zoo. So they're really, it's a leadership team exercise. You want your integrators and you want your leaders on your leadership team to be doing this in a thoughtful, tactically sound way, and make sure that if you're having conversations with the people you want to retain, you're doing it thoughtfully, slowly, measured, and certainly not by consensus at all. The leadership team is making decisions. You're building a culture. You should ask for a bite-sized contribution to the future. It's not, I mean, occasionally you have sort of that. If you are the entrepreneur, the visionary entrepreneur, and you've got your integrator number 2 in command, that's a different conversation than your head of sales, right? So I guess that's to add to what you're saying, like really think this through in terms of how much latitude and how much are we talking about here? Is it? Yeah.
Are they part of the executive team, or are they part of the collective, or are they? Yeah. I mean, everybody's got different weight to the conversation.
Yeah. So I mean, okay, the last if it is that leadership team and you're running them through your leadership team meetings, and you're running like an EOS type system, and the meeting pulse that goes with that, or any other system is scaling up or anything like that. That really is the process. Like, you generally don't need to do more, because you're building their vision, you're driving accountability, you're creating a healthy team, and people flow into that and they flow out of that naturally. The whole process is self-contained. If it's outside of that, then you got to find the right bite-sized piece of that.
Agreed. Great topic.
Whew. Well, thank you for that.
Hopefully we don't scare too many people, but a little bit of fear won't hurt you if awareness is good.
Yeah, I hear you. It's a painful lesson to learn, though. I don't want to create fear, but I do think that a conversation about that with your leadership team, and obviously reaching out to us if you're sort of stuck on how to eat that elephant one bite at a time, because that is the problem, right? It's either like I ignore it, or I try to tackle too many parts of it. Getting the conversation started is really important.
Perfect.
Well, I think we got about 2 minutes.
maybe 60 seconds.
All right, brother. It's good stuff. You want to sum us up today, or do you want to make me do it?
I'm happy to. I'll carry the water for you today, because you always do the heavy lifting. But look, at the end of the day, there's a great migration going on, and as a leader, you have to choose a couple of things to take action on today. Number one is, if you have people that you want to keep on your team, make sure that you understand where they are and what's going to keep them happy and content, so they don't look over the fence to see if there's greener pastures. Number two is, if you're looking to top grade the team, now is the time to get ahead of it. Start building the job description, start building what the ideal candidate looks like, create the interview process so it's succinct, make sure there's a good onboarding process, comp plans are in alignment, because they are measuring you against all the other people they're interviewing with. So it is a competition, and you have to put your best foot forward. So the migration's happening, figure out how you're going to participate.
Absolutely. And it's a patience game, coupled with the idea of you don't have to have that much benefit come back to make it exceedingly well worth it, if that makes sense. Brad, awesome stuff, man. Great topic. Looking forward to letting me know whether we're streaming on Monday or not. So if you're tuning in, we may or may not be streaming next week. If not, we'll be the week after that, I assume. I don't even know the answer to that either. All right. We'll see you next time on Play and Win with me, Brad, and your good friend, Mark Henderson Leary.
Or yes. Have a good week.